Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by Twitch. Fun is now a Twitch partner and offering some awesome subscriber-only benefits. Subscribe today or get a free subscription each month when you have Amazon Prime by linking your account and clicking subscribe.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third biannual CADathon brought to you by F4. We are live on the First Updates Now Twitch channel and like to thank the fun crew for hosting us today, with a special thanks to Tyler Olds for producing in the background. My name is Samuel Prokowski, and I will be your host for today. Before we get into the CADathon, I would like to have our judges introduce themselves. Bryce, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bryce Croucher. I'm a mentor. I was a student on FRC Team 2471. That's Team Mean Machine from Camas, Washington. I've been doing First Robotics for about 10 years now. Started with FLL, progressed on to FRC. I won the Dean's List Award in 2014. And yeah, it's just been a wild ride. Can't wait to be on the show tonight.
Awesome. Now let's go to Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott Ripito. You may know me as Mr. Rip. I'm with 1477, and I'm the token old guy on the show tonight. So I'll provide any insight I can from the days when we used to draw with pencils.
And normally behind the camera as a producer is Nick Olson.
Yeah, I'm Nick Olson, mentor on Team 148. I've been doing First for going on 9 years now. And I'm a design engineer at Innovation First International Hexbug.
Awesome. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. Before we get into talking about the individual robots, we should probably talk about the game they were designed to play. So for the third F4 CADathon, we will be playing Forest Fiesta. Forest Fiesta is played by two alliances of 3 robots on a 27 by 54 foot carpeted field. This challenge game has one main task, and that is scoring as many logs as you can. Logs are introduced on ramps and are scored in 3 different goals on the opposing side of the field. There's the low horizontal goal, which sits on the floor and scores alliances 2 points per log. The vertical goal, which sits 55 inches above the carpet and scores alliances 15 points per log. And the high horizontal goal, which towers 84.25 inches above the carpet and scores alliances 10 points per log. The high horizontal goal, however, has a little twist. 2 fungus logs start at the beginning of the match and can be placed in the high horizontal goal of an opposing alliance to half the score of the logs inside before they have a chance to empty it. The alliance at the end with the most points win. So we are going to be going through the teams numerically for judging today, but we are going to reserve the top 3 for the end. These teams are comprised of mostly students with some college alumni and mentors. If you want to get involved in the next CADathon, make sure you keep an eye out on Chief Delphi and social media. The next F4 CADathon will take place around December, right before the game reveal. Also, thanks to Fun, we will be having a special giveaway near the end of the show. Tyler, why don't you tell everyone about the giveaway and how they can win?
Yeah, Sam. So for the giveaway, we're going to be doing something from Wordplay All Day, who's been gracious enough to make some really cool designs that were shown on here. So the winner of that, we'll be able to get one of these awesome magnets that are hand-drawn by Christina Tia. And at the end of the show, or near the end of the show, as we get to the top 3, we'll put in a special keyword or phrase that you need to put in the chat. Don't forget, you need to follow or subscribe to us in order to have that. Those who do choose to subscribe, we definitely appreciate you helping support Fun. You do get a 5 times entry into the contest. So if you want to win that, stick around, enjoy the show, and we'll do the drawing later on.
All right, so Team 26 is going to start us off, and Team 26 is no stranger to CADathons. In fact, Team 26 has participated in all 3 CADathons, and they took advantage of the rules and built a robot that is sub 20 inches for maximum capacity, which allows it to hold 6 logs. This robot can zip across the field at 16.07 feet per second and score accurately in both the low goal and high horizontal goal. So Bryce, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. 26 looks like they made a really awesome-looking robot to me this year. I really am a big fan of the double-jointed arm design. Yeah, really strong. It's going to be nice and fast with a low center of gravity when it's moving around. The intake looks fast and continuous. One thing I think they need to keep looking at is the hood actuation on the end of their arm. It has to make about a 180-degree rotation to get into position, and that's going to be a bit of a challenge to make it function how they really want it. But all in all, great design.
Going to Scott.
Well, when I was looking at it, first of all, I was so impressed with how much they were able to get done in 3 days. It's just incredible looking at these robots. So I really liked the robot, the way it was laid out, how it all fit together. But I've got a really big concern with how that's going to unfold, and those 2 arms, and it's going to stay nice and straight. And then if by any chance it starts to move, it just looks really, really top heavy to me.
All right, and then Nick. Not muted.
Muted.
I did it, Tyler, just for you. Just for you. Hashtag muted. Yeah, so going along with what Scott said, I do question a little bit of the rigidity of that arm structure. I know I've built a couple arms in my past, and they all have been pretty wobbly, especially with these bigger game pieces as well. Might see some fatiguing in the joints there as well. And it looks like it appears to be welded as well. So they might want to add some gusset plates onto those arms to help those welds out as well.
All right, so in the end, Team 26 was really close to the top 3, but they ended in the 4th place spot. So the next team is Team 42, or should I say Alistair, and they came back from a 2nd place finish in the last CADathon. Created yet another red robot from down under. This robot is designed to score in the vertical goal and could do so 6 at a time. He took a similar approach as last time, building a relatively simple, robust machine to hopefully outscore his opponents. Bryce, how do you feel about Team 42 spot?
Yeah, I really like the creativity of the design, using the multi-barrel kind of revolver design is really cool. I'm not really sure how well they're going to be able to get lined up and get those logs scored in practice. But yeah, it's definitely cool looking, and it's interesting design for sure.
All right, and going to Scott.
What I really liked about this robot is 1 year in Best Robotics, we had a design we called the 6-shooter. It looked a lot like this one, so it kind of brought back some memories. And, it looks like once it gets the logs, it could score them pretty quickly. I was a little concerned about how it was going to get the logs in place. And then just looking at the geometry, it looked like it was going to be really hard for it to line up with the vertical goal. I looked at some of the CAD and looked at it from the side. And they're going to have a little bit of a problem with some of the stuff they have on the front of the robot to get in position.
All right, and going to Nick.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to agree with both of the other 2 guys there. Being a former driver myself, I can imagine actually acquiring the logs is going to be a nightmare, even with 100 hours of practice. So they might want to spend some more time on actually acquiring the game pieces. Us on 148, we like to go with the touch it, own it method. So more of that.
I agree.
I think we'll see on another robot here that they did something really nice to line themselves up when they try to do something with the vertical.
Yes, we will see them soon enough. And so Team 42, they came in 8th place. That brings us to Team 44. They also came back from last CADathon and created another impressive machine. This robot's slightly taller than the last few, standing at 40 inches, allowing it to hold and score 4 logs at a time in the horizontal high goal. Bryce, how do you feel about Team 44?
So, from the top, it looks solid. I like the general robot archetype. It reminds me a lot of the 2011 powerhouses. I like the roller claw. One thing that I found interesting about this design is that it only has rollers on the top, which in some ways it might intake a little slower that way, but theoretically it'll also help to make sure that the logs don't come in cockeyed. It'll center them. perpendicular to the clock.
Overall layout.
A little bit of lag there.
So I like the general overall layout. Like you said, it reminds me a whole lot of our 2011 robot. One of the things that we did on that one is we had a 4-bar in order for the to keep that arm in the right orientation, and then we had it actuated at the end. So again, a little bit concerned about just the arm weight and how big that claw is on the end to grab things. But you know, it looked like a really solid robot, and I thought it'd score pretty well.
All right, Nick, how do you feel about it?
Well, when I first saw this robot, the first thing I thought was it's what happens when you have 1986 from this year with their drivetrain and 2056 from 2011, and they made a baby robot. And that's what this robot is right here. So very, very effective on the field, most likely. The Mecanum is probably going to let them down. I'm a big West Coast fan there, a little bit of bias.
You mean the vectored intake wheels, right?
Yeah, the vectored intakes wheels should probably be on the intake, not the drivetrain there. But kudos to you guys for pulling that off in the limited time you had. This would definitely be a pretty good contender for if this game was legit.
All right, and Team 44 finished in the 14th place. That brings us to Team 47, and Team 47 completed their robot in a single day. So kudos for them on that one. They had an off-season competition the day after. But anyway, they utilized their perfected swerve modules, which they have used for a couple seasons, and their very wide robot can zip across the field with agility. It wields some dual scissor lifts and starts under the 20-inch mark, so the bot can hold up to 6 logs and score quickly, filling the high horizontal goal. Bryce, how do you feel about Team 47?
Yeah, 47, it's a great number to have beyond just the robot. They look to have a pretty cool intake with the vectored intake wheels helping to center the logs. I think they could afford to have a little more clearance on the sides there. Their capacity to hold 6 logs is going to be huge for them, but the big concern of the design, of course, is the scissor lift. It's hard to say how that would play out for them in real competition.
Scott, how do you feel about the scissor lift?
I'm not a fan of scissor lifts, so I had a big problem with that. It just looks, it's going to be wobbling all over the place. It needs a lot more structure on the scissor lift part, especially for it to start so low and then elevate. It's got to have some kind of boost on it. I do like the intake system, over the bumper, bringing them in to that space. So I still scored this one. I think I scored it pretty well just because I thought it'll be able to score them in the low goal even if they don't use the scissor lift.
All right, and that brings us to Nick.
To quote a good friend Libby, scissor lifts break hearts. So definitely looks pretty flimsy there. The other issue I had is the actual scoring of it. It looks like there appears to be an active mechanism helping with the logs rolling in, but it's still relying quite a bit on gravity as well. So that log scoring is going to be pretty slow. Especially with it wobbling around up there because of the scissor lift and they're trying to align and all that. So it looks like acquiring is really quick, but scoring may not be as much. And then the other thing was the vectored intake wheels there. It looks like the plates are slightly proud of the wheels, so you might want to consider trimming those down a little bit so the wheel's the most proud part, so that you can acquire a little quicker there.
They did use mechanisms in the right place, though, so that's good.
Yes, they do not have them.
And that brought them to the 15th place. So that brings us to Team 52. Team 52 can score in the low horizontal goal and vertical goal and wields a butterfly drive that can play defense and strafe while guzzling logs with its full-length intake. Price, how do you feel about Team 52?
Yeah, this design, it's got a lot of good things going on. I like the idea for the intake, the drivetrain. I'm not exactly sure how all of the interactions between the different parts of the mechanism are going to work out in real life. There'd probably have to be a lot of prototyping to see how that's going to work for them. But yeah, CAD competition, there's not a lot of time for prototyping. So.
And Scott?
Yeah, I was looking, I saw this interesting part here with the scoring for the high goal. I mean, not high goal, but the vertical goal. I'm not quite sure I understand how the intake system's going to be pulling in the logs. And then I do kind of understand the centering that goes, which is something a lot of teams didn't pay any attention to, was just kind of assumed they'd line up the log and they'd be good. And this is one of the teams that made a little effort to try to get the logs centered before they placed them.
Yep. Nick, how do you feel about it?
For me, from a CAD standpoint, it seems like they have everything going for them. They are missing their bumpers though, so I did knock them off a couple points from that one. Come on, guys, they're bumpers. But to me, it looked like they might have a little trouble scoring as well, just due to the fact that it's that single log lineup. It's going to take them a little bit there for acquiring them.
All right, so Team 52 finished in 20th place. That brings us to Team 56. Team 56 is another one of those sub-20-inch robots and makes great use of carbon fiber in their main scoring mechanism. Complete with a scissor lift and expanding log storage pod, this robot is for sure going to give its competitors a run for their money, storing 6 logs in the high horizontal goal at a time. Bryce, how do you feel about 56?
Yeah, so I love, again, the capacity. I love going for the scoring a bunch of logs in the high horizontal because it doesn't require reorienting the logs, could make for faster cycles. But as far as implementation, the robustness is going to be this robot's primary nemesis. And especially in the scissor lift, but also in the antagonism, got to make sure everything's nice and solid so it'll keep running the whole competition.
Brings us to Scott.
Yeah, I was looking, well, first of all, it's a scissor lift again, so not a fan. But, it looks really out of balance at the very top. And there's some guy wires you can't really see in the broadcast here, but there's some guy wires to keep the top squared up. But it looks to me like it just leaned back the other way, and I'm not sure how the guy wires help out. So this is maybe a time would have been nice to talk to the designers a little bit and see what the thinking was. Overall, I really like the CAD. The robot looks really nice. So again, it could score very well in the low goal, even though, it's got a scissor lift. So. Yep.
That brings us to Nick.
I loved everything about this robot other than the scissor lift.
Is that it?
That's pretty much it. The intake's super wide. The scoring looks really quick, as long as the scissor lift isn't flimsy.
Yep, I'm agreeing with that one. All right, so that brings us to Team 59. They are in the sub-40 club, holding 4 logs at a time, and they use their swerve drive to make up for the lower capacity. Scoring 40 points at a time in the high horizontal goal, it's not only pick up from the floor, but also from the feeder slide, which is something that I did not see any other teams talk about. So, Bryce, how do you feel about Team 56? 59.
Yeah, 59, their robot looks pretty solid. I like that their scissor lift has some serious beef to it. I like the use of the swerve drives in the frame. It is missing some things, though. No electronics on there. And I'm not 100% sure how they're going to get the 4 log storage out of their mechanism on front there. But all in all, it's a good start.
How do you feel about it, Scott?
I'm going to say the same thing. As far as, just to echo everything he said, it is a scissor lift. However, as Sam said, as Bryce said, it's a really beefy looking scissor lift. So I've got a lot more confidence in this one, kind of maintaining integrity as it extends.
And that brings us to Nick.
As a electronics guy, it hurts a little bit on the inside that they didn't throw any of those on there. They are pretty critical to your robot moving around, and if pre-placing them in CAD definitely helps out your electronics teams for sure. You can get wiring harnesses done early, you can get all your connectors set up and all that. So definitely a couple points knocked off from that. And then the narrow intake is also a little detrimental to the design too. As a former driver again, lining up small things with small intakes is not very fun.
I'm going to agree with that one. All right, so that brought Team 59.
Well, now I got to follow up something here with Nick because he was
Okay.
talking about the electronics missing, and so they'd be kind of stuck there at the end. Don't you have a guy named James Tontat on your team?
We do.
You do. And the whole time James was working with us, electronics was always an afterthought. So if you look at all our robots, they're just kind of stuck there. If you look at the 2013 robot, in the original CAD, the two side panels were just hovering, holding all the electronics for the robots. I'm not going to complain because that robot did pretty well that year, but yeah, you have to deal with James and electronics, so I understand.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so Team 59, despite the lack of electronics, came in 18th place. That brings us to Team 60, and they took a very different approach to the game and took advantage of the fact that there is no particular way that logs must be scored in the low horizontal goal. This robot scores 2 points at a time, but with their swerve drive and well-designed intake, can hopefully outscore its much larger counterparts. Bryce, how do you feel about Team 60?
Yeah, so for Team 60, I like that they went with a small robot. Definitely went with the less common general robot design. I like that they decided to try for a magazine design. It's really different from all the other robots, but I am again concerned with the interface between some of the mechanisms and with how the intake's gonna be to line up.
I think I was looking at, when you look at the robot, I like the magazine idea too. I really like in the description of how it scores, they told us about, they'll get lined up with the low goal and then it'll start striping to the right or to the left and then feeding them in, which is a very different strategy. I like seeing that kind of thing out of people thinking differently, whether it works great or not, just thinking that way. I do have a little bit of a problem with once those logs come in, and how they get all the way to the back of the magazine, because we have these vertical, look like poly belts, but I just not sure how that's going to get all the way back and then feed up the other logs up higher. So, but I did like the design. It was different and had some good stuff going for it.
Nick, how do you feel about it?
I definitely like the intake they had there. The three sides of power is definitely a good thing to have, especially when you're trying to acquire things quickly. You kind of want to throw more power into the device that you're trying to use. And then I also like the swerve. It's pretty compact for what it's worth. Looks like they put quite a bit of effort into that as well. So I did appreciate that.
All right, so thinking differently earned Team 60 a 6th place finish. That brings us to Team 63, and Team 63 better buy some stock in AndyMark because they're using a lot of wheels to intake up to 4 logs into their robot. With an awesome cascading elevator and a nice simple West Coast drive, Team 63 hopes to score above the rest in the high horizontal goal. Bryce, how do you feel about Team 63?
Yes, so I like the general robot design. It looks pretty robust. I am a little concerned about their geometry for how they're gonna get logs off of the floor, and yeah, I mean, but all in all, it looks like a solid contender.
All right, Scott, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I like the idea of the way it can hold a bunch of logs in the jaws, for lack of anything else to call them. But I also was really concerned about how it's going to pick them up off the ground. Looking at the geometry I think it was in one of the renders, it was actually in that down position and just couldn't quite see how it's going to pick those up. So I figured it could get them out of the human player station. So I still scored it pretty well for that reason. But beside that, it just couldn't pick them up off the ground. If it could pick them up off the ground, this robot would be a really good contender.
Nick, how do you feel about it?
This robot reminds me a lot of 1503 back from 2011. Good buddy Nick Lawrence was driving that robot. They were a human player only loader that scored tubes on the high rack, but they did it incredibly quickly. So I think if these guys, if they had great drivers, I think they could be a top contender for sure.
And someone in chat knows the 2 RSLs, so Team 63 is definitely making FTAs happy. All right, so Team 63 ended in 12th place. All right, our next robot is Team 64, and they are a purely vertical goal machine with an awesome-looking mechanism that scores 2 logs at a time, scoring 30 points a shot. Firing purely from the loading slide, this is a very unique machine that towers above the rest. Bryce, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, so I thought it was unique, and I thought it was a good thing to go for, but definitely I'd be worried about some of the interface, again, with the human loader ramp. A lot of teams overlook those details, and also with the wrist up there at the very top of the robot, might have issues with rigidity when they're going to line up with the slot.
Scott, how do you feel about this one?
When I looked at this one, I did look at the lineup with the human player station, and it looked like the claw was just a little bit low, and so I think they'll have a little bit of trouble there. That's an easy fix, so I really didn't consider that much. I think the robot's probably going to behave pretty well, so I think they'll probably be a consistent scorer, and it's simple, and I'm a big fan of simple.
Nick, do you like simple?
I do like simple. I'm a little concerned about the potential for this robot being a little top heavy, especially if they try to rigidize up that claw. It might end up being a little heavier than they expected, and with it being so high up in the air, especially with game pieces, somebody comes, clocks them in the side, they could end up on their side.
Yep, definitely see that one. And that earned Team 64th and 11th place finish. That brings us to Team 65. Their robot is a 2+2 traction wheeled tank drive with 775 Pro custom gearboxes geared for 14 feet per second. The robot is in the 20 under club, yet is still capable of scoring in the high goal using a 2-stage arm with conveyor that holds 5 logs. They opted to go for faster horizontal goals instead of the high difficulty of the vertical goal. Bryce, how do you feel about them?
Yeah, again, I like the double jointed arm designs. My team 2471 actually built one just last off season for a competition, and it was extremely successful. I also like the intake design on this one. I like that it's got a bunch of traction rollers. I would be worried a little bit about the robustness out at the end of that arm, especially when they're intaking, but definitely I like the design for general competitiveness.
Scott, how do you feel about it?
I don't know why, but I felt a little bit better about the arm on this one than I did on the earlier robot that we were talking about. I think it was 26. And I saw this one would be a lot easier to kind of stiffen things up. Wouldn't be too difficult. And I thought it'd be able to score pretty well. So I felt a little bit better about this one and thought it looked just a little bit more robust.
All right, and Nick.
My biggest issue with this robot was the drivetrain. It's a 2+2, but it looks like they have 4 traction wheels on there, if I see that correctly. Definitely going to have issues turning with that robot. Even if it is a light robot, you're still going to be scrubbing. You're still going to be draining battery a lot faster than you need to. Arm looks pretty good, just echoing off of what Scott said.
All right, and that earned Team 65 a 7th place finish. That brings us to Team 66, who took the approach of a fast, simple elevator to place logs one at a time into either the horizontal or vertical high goal. Their robot features a high-powered drivetrain designed to play tough defense. The robot was built with early events in mind, where a few high-scored logs would make all the difference and play a key role as a later pick in divisional playoffs and later regionals as a defensive powerhouse. Their 775 Pro jump drive combines high speed and agility with lots of pushing power. Bryce, let's talk about Team 65.
Yeah, so I like that they chose their role and they really went for it with the design. I do find that, there's going to be a cap to the amount of points they can score with a single log at a time strategy, but all in all, I like that it looks pretty robust and well designed. There's lots of details in there. They did a good job.
All right, 65. So Scott, how do you feel about this one?
Wait, we're on 65?
Yes.
Would
Oh,
I do it?
66. 66.
I think we're on 66.
We are on 66.
Isn't that right?
That is right. Killing
Yeah. 66. So I think Bryce's comments still hold. I think you were looking at the same robot. Yeah, you're looking at the same one on the screen.
Yeah, I was just rolling with it.
Yeah. Good. it's like it's going to get the job done. It's going to be able to pick up, it's going to get a log, going to go score it, going to go pick up another log, go score it high. So it's going to score some points, but it's, probably a third robot. I was kind of wondering about the side panels. I don't know if either of the other two judges saw what the upper side panels, what their function was as part of that. Did you see anything? Okay, I wasn't sure what those upper side panels before. So so we take those off and you make the robot a little bit lighter and everything. And it could be they had something else in mind and just ran out of time, because again, it's just hard to believe people get this done in 3 days, or one day for that one team.
All right, Nick, how do you feel about it?
My notes said simple and effective, and I have to agree with that. Again, I think this robot here is that great second robot that you're always looking for, but you never get because they get picked up by like the 7th Alliance as the first pick. These guys can play a great stealer with those fungus logs and just be zipping around, placing that one log, totally degrading the other team's score.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of the fungus log there, and that's something that if you're picking up one, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. All right, so that earned Team 66, not 65, a 10th place finish. That brings us to Team 68, and despite not quite finishing their robot, they designed an impressive robots machine with an awesome flip-sim gearbox and large tubular superstructure. This robot was designed to hold 4 logs at a time and can score them the high horizontal goal. Bryce, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I like the simple, robust design on this one. I like the intake and the arm with an extension. There are some details left out, of course, but overall, I feel like it would be a robot to contend with at a competition.
All right, that brings us to Scott.
Yeah, again, it's a simple design. I like how it can pull in several logs off the ground. Top looks pretty heavy, and you have to make sure you get those logs centered. So they tend to get off a little bit. It's going to make it harder and take longer to score them at the end. So except for that part, I thought the robot would do pretty well. I wish they had time to get a little bit further in the design.
And that brings us to Nick.
Yeah, I guess exactly what Bryce and Scott had to say. This robot could probably be a lot better if we knew what the rest of it looked like. Unfortunately, this is a short-term event, so not everyone finishes everything on time. But it's pretty similar to the previous robot we saw. What was that, 62 or 63, with all the anti-mark wheels there. These guys just have belts instead, so pretty good. It looks pretty beefy for a robot, so I don't see any damage ever happening to it either.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, especially when you get short champs and stuff. So anyway, that gave them a 9th place finish. That brings us also to Team 71, who, 71 also did not quite finish their robot, but what they have so far does look promising. With a very interesting intake and impressively simple log uprighting mechanism, Team 71 was clearly designed to score in the vertical goal for its very high point value. Bryce, how do you feel about Team 71?
Yeah, so I liked the multi-wheel intake. That looks good. And I like the drivetrain. There's still quite a bit left, of course, even with the frame, but yeah, it's a good start. One thing I would warn them about is when there's too many things that have to happen to the game piece between when it gets first contacted on the ground and when the robot's going to score it, it can affect the reliability and also the speed of the robot.
Scott, how do you feel about it?
Well, we use a lot of polycarbonate, so it's nice to see that, except, it's on the side panels and stuff for the drive system, so we wouldn't use it there. The intake system with the double rollers I like, but they've got to get lined up really well to pull that in, and I would like to have seen, with all the space they had, something to try to center a log, get it into position so they don't have to spend very long getting one. I mean, if they're going to be doing one log at a time in the vertical, they're going to have to do it fast, and so they need to be able to pull that log in very quickly. So I think adding something there, again, it's, I'm impressed with what everybody did with their designs and the amount of time that they did them. So I completely understand not finishing in 3 days.
All right, Nick, how do you feel about it?
I love the intake again, other than the fact it's a little narrow. Probably could put a little more work into that guy, and it'd probably be almost competition ready. And then just the log arm looked like it could use quite a bit of work with that guy. I didn't really see any active holding of the log or anything like that. Being all polycarb, I have seen teams do it. 1714 up in Wisconsin did it for many years in a row. But they did have a lot of resources that went into a drivetrain like that and a whole robot, and they had a great sponsor that did it. So you definitely want to know what you're getting yourself into when you're designing a whole robot like that.
All right, and Team 71 came in 19th place. That brings us to Team 73, and they are a capable machine utilizing the kit-apart chassis to save time. It's designed to score 4 logs at a time and keep center of gravity in mind. Rocking a set of purple bumpers, this robot can quickly score in the low horizontal goal. How do you feel about this one, Bryce? You did? Or...
Yeah, I like the simplicity of the design, of course. I actually feel like
All right, Scott, how do you feel about this one?
Good, I get to go first. So
details that they put into the design, and
okay, so I was looking at it, and I think it's a really good, like when I see rookie teams, first year, second year teams, I really encourage them to try to do something simple and do it really well. And that's what I see when I'm looking at this robot is, if they kind of beef up the mechanism for the arm flipping around, that it'll be really good at picking up some logs, carrying them around, and then scoring them low. So it's a robot I think I'd like to have on an alliance, especially at a regional.
All right, can we go back to Bryce, or Bryce, how you doing?
Let's see, how's that?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right. So, yeah, I think that this is a great design for a lot of those teams that if they saw this challenge would just know that if it may not get done or may not be tuned how it should be. I mean, making those elevators to get that high is really going to be a lot of effort and complication. So this robot looks simple and robust and a good choice for a lot of teams.
All right, and now let's go to Nick.
This is one of the great examples of keeping it simple for sure. It'd probably win regionals, probably up until about week 3 for sure, being that the chassis is already done by day 1, and then they can just spend about 3 weeks of the build season just driving the robot, which is something that a lot of people don't get.
All right, so Team 73 came in 16th place. That brings us to Team 76, who literally came into this competition saying, "What's CAD?" They turned out a nice little machine ready to score in the high horizontal goal. But more importantly, they finished their competition with hopefully a lot more CAD skills than when they entered it. Bryce, how do you feel about this one?
Yes, so I feel like this robot is a great start. I'm really impressed with what all these teams are able to do in such a short time. But there are definitely a lot of things that would have to be sorted out before this robot could really be built. The telescoping arms, of course, have like a ridiculous amount of stages to them. But, they've come a long way, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Scott, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I wrote on, for the telescoping arms, I wrote magic. So I wasn't sure how they were going to get up that high with those arms that way. So, but I didn't know that they were, hadn't done the CAD before. A really good exercise for them doing the drive base. And, if you don't know what to do with the lifting mechanism, you put something in there, and that's what another sub team is going to take care of. So kudos to them for putting together a good concept and a good drive base.
All right, Nick, how do you feel about this one?
They did a pretty sweet job of packaging so much in such a small space on the drive base, that's for sure. The one downside, though, is I didn't see any active mechanism for scoring the logs other than it just lifting up. So definitely need to put a little more effort into that, and it could be a top contender.
All right, still better than the.
That's right. I have taken over because Sam's mic is muted. And now you know how it really shall be.
Oh no.
So, I'll let Sam get his mic going, and we'll move on to. We are on team number 80. Is that correct?
Yeah, team number 80.
All right. So 80 took Compact to a whole new level by essentially creating. Let's get their image up here and check out their robot first, and then you can see what it's like. But they took it to a whole new level by creating an impressive machine that scores 6 logs at a time in the vertical goal. Can not only extend to over 3 times the original size, but it can also wipe away its competition with an awesome just robot and whatever word that is in the script there. Pretty awesome drivetrain there. So, Bryce, how do you feel about team number 80?
Yeah, so I love that this team really just went for it. They went for holding the most amount of logs, doing the highest point value per log. It's the biggest engineering challenge that was offered in this game. And, you know, they came a long way with it. They had a lot of really good ideas, but some of the details definitely still need to be worked out. Like you can see in that render, some of the packaging for the starting configuration isn't worked out yet. But, you know, I think that they've made a lot of good progress, and they're on a pretty cool track to be on.
Scott, are they on the cool track to be on?
Well, you know, looking at the robot and the way the metal is cut out, and the way it's put together, it's really a beautiful machine when it first starts out. But I kept trying to figure out what this one vertical bar was that was cutting across the magazine there, and it's part of the intake. So that's the interference that that Bryce was talking about that keeps it from folding up. So maybe early on they start out and they're not in that low configuration. They start in that. They start in that low configuration. Well, not in the low, but partly up, so they're within 40 inches, and then they can still run through their matches and everything, and try to work on that interference issue. If you look in the picture, it's kind of right above the 8-0, and there's a crossbar going across there.
All right, not sure what happened to my mic, but let's go to Nick.
Yeah, just echoing what Scott and Bryce said with the interference issues. Does look like a pretty sweet robot if that does work out for them. However, that magically decides to package. The intake looked pretty nice too, pretty wide. I did see that on the right-hand side there, it looks like that could potentially crash into some objects on the ground and prohibit the log from coming in from that side. So it does look like it's almost like a handed intake where it can only intake really good from the left side, but not so great from the right side.
All right, so that gave Team 80 a 5th place finish. Now we're actually going to go back to Tyler, and he's going to talk about our giveaway before we get into the top 3.
Oh, yeah. We got that to do. This is going by really fast, guys, and just want to say we're really happy to have F4 on here. This CADathon is something that we really want to support here at Fun, and we're really excited for all the submissions, and we hope that all of you watching that you'll submit for next year or the next CADathon, which that's, Sam, probably what, in December you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So we really hope that. We really want to grow this. I think it's a great exercise. If you have students on your team, or if you are a student, get them involved and engaged in this, because this is a fantastic opportunity for you to get some great practice in. So with that said, we're going to do a giveaway here, and here's kind of the rules for it. In just a little bit, you're going to have a keyword to type in, which will tell you what that is in a second. And essentially, as long as you're following or subscribed to our channel, you'll get an entry as long as you type in that keyword, and you can spam it as many times as you want. And from there, essentially, you get a chance to win the Wordplay All Day, which we'll throw up here in just a second. One of these really cool magnets from Christina Tia, and kind of go from there. So with that said, to put in the entry, you just need to type in TSIMFD for the entry. So we'll type that in real quick so you have that. And as we start doing the final ones, you'll have a chance to win this awesome drawing at the end of the show.
All right, I guess we're going to go into our top 3 then. All right, so we're going to kick it off with Team 54. Team 54 has a beautiful robot starting just below 40 inches. It holds 4 lives at a time and makes use of their cascading elevator, scoring quickly and easily into the high horizontal goal. Driven by a reliable and robust West Coast drive, Team 54 really put out their best CAD skills for this one, which is evident in their 3rd place finish. Bryce, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, this robot looks great overall. I like the simplicity and robustness of the design. I also like that their intake has got a pretty solid reach out in front of their robot. But the one thing I'd still be worried about is that they don't have any sort of mechanism for centering the logs as they come in, and they don't have any way to drive side to side. So lining up with the horizontal high goal for scoring is probably going to be one of their bottlenecks. But overall, it's definitely going to be a major contender at any competition.
Scott, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I had the same issue about the centering. In fact, I was going back just to look at the CAD to see if I had missed that. But one thing I like about this robot is it doesn't have the double jointed arm. It's just got the single joint, and then it uses an elevator to get that additional height. And so even though that's 2 separate systems, it just seems to be a little bit more rigid and a little more robust when they're getting knocked around out on the field. So I really like this robot, even though I would just say it's not a complicated robot, not terribly complicated. It just looks to me like it would perform really well on the field.
I agree. Nick, how do you feel about this one?
Good. You didn't hear that. I like the arm elevator combo. I'm always a big fan of those. Very reminiscent of like Wild Stang from 2011 or 254 as well, or even 1114, I believe, also had one that was pretty similar. Gives you that extra reach, and it's a little less on the control side of things as well. And the little extra extended intake was pretty nice as well.
Absolutely. So, Team 54 came in 3rd place, as I said before, and that brings us into our 2nd place team, which is Team 25. Team 25 has 3 CADathons under their belt, which clearly helped them out a lot. They took a lot of inspiration from the Bomb Squad pretty much everywhere, from their intake to their elevator. So hopefully it performs like one of their robots. And with the cascading elevator, the zipper-like scoring mechanism, and a nice-looking intake, Team 25 is looking to perform scoring in both in the high horizontal goal. Bryce, how do you feel with this one?
Yeah, so this robot, I really liked a lot of the detail that they put into the design. I also liked how creative it is. It's really got some interesting mechanisms. But main thing for me is the robustness of that, I forget what they called it, the marble roller upper mechanism that's going to score the logs. It seems like it's got a lot of moving parts and potential for failure in competition. But yeah, I mean, it's package is low, score is high. It's got an interesting intake. It's definitely a great design for such a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Scott, how do you feel about this one?
Well, when I first saw this robot, and this was the first one I looked at, I was just like blown away. I didn't know what I'd gotten myself into. I was going to be looking at all these robots at this level. And so that tells you a little something about the robot. I mean, I've done a few robot CADs, and this CAD is just incredible. And then when I saw the rendering, I mean, it just did it for me. I mean, it was beautiful. So I really like that part. I started analyzing things a little bit. I think it's going to have a lot of automation to make it really efficient, a lot of indexing and stuff, so that it picks up a log, puts it in the right place, puts up a log. That's got to be indexed pretty well. I also, and it says in the description how they are going to deposit the logs at the top. So I wasn't quite sure about how that was going to work. I mean, I understood what they wrote. Anyway, I couldn't see that. The one big issue I did have with this robot was it does have a wheel for striping, and the wheel is toward the back end. And it's almost right at the very end of the robot. Now in the front, it has a pair of Omnis, but I'm just looking at the robot trying to imagine how that strafing wheel in the very back's actually going to make it strafe instead of kind of turn on, like on a radius. And so that was my only concern with the design was that use of the strafing wheel. Just moving the strafing wheel right to the center probably solves that problem, except you have to have it so that those back wheels do get up off the ground. The idea of striping is to make it easier to get those logs in that the high goal, because there's not a lot of room for them. They're pretty tight fit, and so if you're off just a little bit with a strafing wheel, you could move over to the left or right, which is one of the things that was nice about the looking at all the swerve drives, was their ability to be able to move side to side just a little bit would make it a lot quicker for them to score.
All right, Nick, how do you feel about this one?
I have to agree with Scott on that strafing wheel. It had me scratch my head for quite a while, and just questionable as a driver, because if it does lift the back wheels up and the front omnis are still on and you activate it, you get like a pseudo side strafe motion, but it's going to want to turn about the robot, so that might be a pretty difficult thing to control. And then just again with the scoring of the logs, like the acquiring them seems pretty legit, but the scoring might need a little help with that one.
All right, but go.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing I would kind of like to see, if this robot was built, I would like to see them try is if they have the drive wheels pushing forward against the wall and then try the strafe, does it overcome kind of the turning moment that the robot's going to have? I don't think there's enough there to make that happen. But if they only needed an inch or two, they might be able to get that out of it, and that would be a big help.
Yeah. The other thing that's a possibility that I thought about when I was looking at this design, sorry, I've kind of forgot about the whole strafing thing in my first blib, but if the back wheels are off the ground and the front omnis are still on the ground, they could potentially use some nice software to use the regular drive motors to compensate for the rotation. So essentially they'd be like a 3-wheel Kiwi at that point. But that'd require a little bit of software magic that I'm not sure would work out.
Be pretty inefficient too, because
yeah,
if you're strafing right, then the right's got to go back, the left's got to go forward, then you're getting
But it might give them the ability to actually move sideways.
And they don't have to move that far, if they're trying to line up. So I hadn't thought of that as a solution. So that'd be another one they could try out. Yeah.
All right. So that brings us, I think, to the number 1 robot. And this robot was teased a little bit on Chief Delphi earlier, so some of you guys may have seen it, but it's Team 62. Team 62 took the crown this time, and they are yet another vertical scorer that can do so 4 logs at a time. It's complete with a swerve drive, 4-bar linkage, cascading elevator, and a blue paint job. It's definitely hard to believe this robot was not designed by 1323 students, but overall, I think it's definitely a nice one. And Bryce, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, so I love this design overall. There's a lot of great details in there, like the little jig that pops out to align with the vertical goal. I really like the swerve drive, the frame. I had just minor concerns with the amount of articulations in that main scoring mechanism. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff going on that all got to work just right to get to that goal. But if it's all working as intended, it's really going to be a powerful score. I also like the intake and indexing mechanism with all the Omni wheels. It seems like an interesting solution for sure.
Absolutely. Scott, how do you feel about
it? I kept wondering what that little part was for in front. Now I understand. It's to help it center. But beside that, see, I'm dumb. Beside that, one of the things I really liked about the robot was that it does have a method for centering the logs as they come in. It does have some wheels in there, so as the logs come in, it can try to get them centered to try to make that placement more efficient. But just like Bryce said, the whole mechanism with that I mean, it's a rather large mechanism out in front of the robot. Having that turn and get down at ground level, seems to be a pretty tall order for the robot. And when I looked closely at the CAD, I didn't really see how that was going to play out. So it's one of those things that was kind of magic, but there were so many other really positive things going for it that just really liked the way the robot was put together. And to be able to do 4 in the vertical goal is a big bonus over, that's the same as 6 in the high goal. Some of the robots were trying to do 6 in the high goal. So I think this one could be a good score.
Absolutely. Nick, how do you feel about this one?
This is definitely one of those robots that's trying to do it all and almost succeeds. It does look like they can almost score on the high goal, which would be pretty interesting if they could do that too. Maybe some more joint articulation would get that there. But yeah, I do like the centering mechanism. That's also kind of the scoring mechanism. I don't know if that was intended, kind of what Scott was saying there with the all the Omni wheels there. Definitely have quite a bit invested into those Omnis, so I'm sure either Vex or Andy Mark are going to be pretty happy with that one. And then their swerve actually was pretty impressive too. I don't know if the swerve was pre-CADed or whatnot, but if you guys do get a chance, take a look at that swerve. Definitely very compact, very well thought out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did take a look at all of the CAD for every single robot that was submitted. And this one, there was one specific detail that I really, really liked. And that was how it actually articulated from the horizontal position to the vertical position. If you notice, I would expect that usually to be done with a motor because that just seems the most intuitive. But it's done with a pneumatic cylinder on a little bit of like a crankshaft and then bevel gears to turn it to the vertical position, which I thought was really cool, really clever, and would help a lot in reducing the complexity around this design. And yeah, they did win, so it went out pretty well for Team 62. So I think this brings us to the giveaway, Tyler. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does, and congratulations team number 62 for winning the CADathon. Freaking awesome design. That's so cool. So yeah, let's do the drawing here. We're going to roll and see who our winner is. And we do have to roll again because you do have to follow, and it tells me if you're following or not. So unfortunately, that person does not win. But the person who does win is Team 327-53134. That's quite the name there. Congratulations for winning the drawing. So you're going to get the Christine Attia Wordplay All Day magnet that's shown on the screen right there. And all you got to do is shoot me your contact information either on Twitch or hit us up on Facebook. And you'll get that prize mailed out to you. So congratulations, and thanks for following the channel.
All right, and it looks like that completes the broadcast for today. A big thanks to the F4 GDC, consisting of Adi Sai, Andrew Lawrence, Levi Madden, Max Ford, Pratik Murray, Rohit Gandhi, Arpit Agarwal, Dan Howenitz, Dikshant Sharma, Harrison Smith, Nicholas Murray, Wesley Suku, William Gulov. Another thanks to our amazing judges, Nicholas Olson, Scott Ribito, and Bryce Croucher. And lastly, a big thanks to the Fun Crew and Tyler Olds for helping a ton with the live aspect of the show. We hope to see everyone here in December for our 4th CADathon. And we want everyone to stay tuned on Chief Delphi for that announcement. So anyway, congratulations to Team 62, and thank you for everyone that was watching. Everyone just wants to say goodbye.
Good night. Thanks for having me.
Good night, everybody.
Later.